Hi, welcome to another episode of the Caroline Glick Show. I want to start this show a little differently. I want you to watch a clip. What you're about to see is a recorded conversation between an IDF officer and a civilian in Gaza talking about the humanitarian aid situation. Just sit back and watch this for about a minute.
الوضع مزري لانه الناس اللي ماسكه الزبونات عشان تبقى فاهم الناس اللي ماسكه المساعدات كمان حراميه.
ليش المساعدات حرامية؟ يعني في هناك عناصر حماس اللي عم ياخذوا من هذا الأكل من المساعدات الإنسانية.
أكيد ما هم وين حماس وين موجودة وين بتكون موجودة بتخرب.
بس هذا المكان هو للمساعدات الإنسانية، يعني يجب عليهم أعطاء الغذاء إلى المدنيين. شو دخل حماس هناك؟
ما هو حماس يا سيدي العزيز، حماس حاطه ايدها على كل حاجه عشان تبقوا انتم فاهمين. حماس حاطه ايدها على موظفين الوكاله، هم القيادات في رئاسه الوكاله، هم المسؤولين في الجمعيات، هم المسؤولين في هان وهان. من يوم ما مسكوا البلد هم ماسكين كل حاجه لها سيطره على البلد.
يعني ما عم يعطوا المدنيين ولا اي غذاء؟
بيعطوا خصاتهم بالاول.
وانتم يعني جربتم تحكوا مع الوكالة وتقولوا لهم هذا الشيء؟ يعني مسؤولين الوكالة
مع مين بدك؟
مسؤولين
اللي بيحكي
مسؤولين الوكالة كمان عم يتعاملوا مع حماس؟
سيدي موظفين الوكالة هم حماس.
Okay, so what did we just find out here? Since the very beginning of this conflict, the ultimate demand of the United States in the name of the so-called international community has been that Israel must allow humanitarian aid into Gaza, and the organization that's overseeing it is the supposedly neutral and independent United Nations through UNRWA, the organization dedicated to the Palestinians. And what we just heard here is, and we knew this already, and I've been speaking about this for weeks and weeks and weeks, that UNRWA is a wholly owned subsidiary of Hamas. It's controlled by Hamas. All of its directors are Hamas, so that literally the United States is demanding that Israel resupply Hamas. That's what we found out here with absolutely no doubt anymore. All of these trucks, 200 trucks, 300 trucks, 70,000 trucks, whatever a day, it's all going to Hamas, and they're the ones who get to decide who gets what, when, and how much, and they get it first. So to discuss this, I have two incredible guests today. They're both members of a really important organization called Mothers of Warriors, which is an organization of mothers of men, fighting men who are in Gaza, and women who are in Gaza now fighting. And they have a very clear demand of from the government of Israel: stop with this humanitarian aid farce. So first of all, I want to welcome both of you. I have Carmeli here. And so thank you for coming, and I'm going to turn to you second, and also Chana Katan. And I want to, and before actually I start with you, I just want to tell you guys that right now, as we're speaking, the organization Mother of Warriors has just set up a sort of a protest tent outside of the Knesset to call for an end to the humanitarian aid. So first of all, I want to talk to you for a second, Gal. You come at this from a unique angle. It's not that you have children in Gaza. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your story?
So everything that's being exposed to even more nowadays is something that for years we've kind of realized ever since my brother was killed.
Your brother Sean?
My brother Sean, yeah, he moved from Texas. We all grew up in Texas, and he moved to Israel at the age of 16, and he drafted to the army. He was a lone soldier, and in the 2014 Operation Protective Edge War, Sean, along with his brigade, they were the first to enter. Yeah, the Golani brigade. They were the first to enter. He was actually the first to enter Sajaiya. A couple days after the war started, they entered Sajaiya, and within about an hour or so, Sean, along with 12 other Golani soldiers, were killed. When they entered Sajaiya, the whole region over there, the whole area was under heavy fire. Lots of fire and rockets coming from the Wafa hospital, which does not exist any longer.
So let's just talk about it. Let's stop. They came in, they were in jeeps, I think, right? And
Sean was in a Namel, and they were in a tank, right? The Nagmash.
so they were in an armored personnel carrier and a tank. And they came under RPG, rocket, and small arms fire from a hospital.
From the hospital and all nearby area. When they realized that there were rockets coming from the hospital, and they understood that they were in serious risk, they asked permission from high-ranking generals to blow up the hospital so that they can continue to go and fight the evil that they were about to do. And they dismissed this, did not get permission, dismissed them. Within an hour or so, 13 soldiers were killed. This continued for a couple of days. 16 Golani soldiers within a day and a half were killed. And
all because of the fire emanating from
the hospital. Sean was actually killed from, because they were under heavy fire, he was killed from a terrorist that came under a tunnel, and they weren't able to kind of, understand the situation. And so about a day and a half later, they decided to bomb the hospital, which they should have done beforehand. They actually investigated it and understood that there were, if any, very, very, very few injured patients in the hospital. The hospital was full of Hamas terrorists and Hamas supplies, and unfortunately, it was too late.
So this, what we're seeing now is just a repeat, really, of what we already experienced in 2014, and at such great human cost to our soldiers, right?
Yeah, a constant repeat of what always happens in war. We are such a moral, we have this ideology that we're such a moral army, but we forget to take care of ourselves. Forget that we're fighting an enemy. That's the biggest problem here.
And here today is, Dr. Katan, you have your mother, you're a doctor, you're a gynecologist, IVF expert. I mean, you're like a really serious professional woman, and you're also, take it from me, you're very serious. And you're also the mother of 13. 7 soldiers now, reservists, have been called up, several of them fighting in Gaza. So first of all, what do you make of this whole medical facilities being used?
Well, we happen to be an organization of doctors which we try to make a contest over that. Dealing with the Shifa Hospital. To challenge what happened with Shifa Hospital before they knew what was going on. We knew that there was a lot of weapons there. We knew that it was full of, that the enemy is using it as a covering, and we protested all the time about that thing. Even though we're doctors, we should be moral. We should we should worry about the patients, but we understood exactly what's going on, and it's continuing to go on. All the hospitals that we found until now are full. The hospitals, the nurseries, the bedrooms of little babies,
every single school, every UN school, every regular school in Gaza filled with weapons.
Under the beds of children. I mean, in times they have all their little bobot.
All of their dollies.
The dollies are full of it.
The toys, yeah.
So it's definitely, and I think that we're making, as you said, we're making the exact same mistake, and the enemy only knows what the enemy. We're thinking in Hebrew, and they're thinking in Arabic, and we're not talking the same language. And if we want to really make them surrender, we have to do the right things to have them surrender. Meanwhile, we're helping them. We're giving them ammunition. We're helping them get stronger. And how are they going to surrender this way? It's just going to complete. It's just going to go on and on and on. More soldiers are going to be killed, instead of just taking these high buildings and just bombing them. Instead of making sure that we don't let them use humans as in human protection in front of our terrorists. Yes, and we know it's not Jewish walls either. I mean, if
you're kind to the cruel, then you're cruel to the kind.
Exactly. And
they take advantage of us.
And they take advantage of our good hearts and of our morality. And I say as a mother, I'm terrified. I'm just saying I'm terrified.
No, I agree with you. And the thing that's so amazing is the repetition all the time of the international community's outcry against Israel for, bombing civilian targets when it's all known ahead of time. Everybody knows it happened. Sean Carmeli and his comrades were killed because of this outcry of the international community against Israel for bombing civilian targets. And everywhere you go, you see that there are none. I think we've had at least 3 incidents that I've seen just in the past several days of IDF soldiers being killed because...
Or injured.
Yeah.
How many do we have in the hospitals injured?
Yeah, we haven't even talked about
legs
that.
and arms. And,
Yeah, it's crazy.
We're not talking about the injured. We have hundreds of injured, terribly injured soldiers.
Yeah, and a lot of them, it's the limbs because it's IEDs that are being planted and they blow up as they come out because these civilians come and I mean, I've seen, footage and stories of soldiers who were told not to shoot because it was civilians, and the civilians were the wives and the children of these Hamas terrorists who were coming back to their homes, and as the soldiers were allowing them to pass.
Some of them use costumes. They use costumes if they're women and they're men. All kinds of things. I mean, they're very, very tricky, and they'll do. Hatred is something which is very, very has a lot of power.
Yeah, I mean, and the weird thing about the American response is that they experienced the exact same thing in Afghanistan and in Iraq. I mean, we saw it when, in the initial stages in 2003, I was embedded with the 3rd Infantry Division, and the Republican Guard units of Saddam Hussein. They left their bases. They were all wearing the same. They had taken off their uniforms. They were all wearing sweatshirts and sweatpants. And you knew that they were soldiers because they were all wearing sweatpants and sweatshirts. But ostensibly they're civilians, right? They're no longer in uniform. And that's precisely the modus operandi of Hamas. So you were doing it as a doctor, and now you're looking at it as a mom.
Right.
And so what really, can you talk a little bit about what it is that the mothers of warriors are saying to the
We're saying that, first of all, we want them to, if we send our sons, we want a purpose in it. And we want to make sure that we're going to win this war. This has to be won. We have no choice. It's a war of no choice. It's not as if we're doing because we just wanted this war. We know that if it's not going to be now, it's going to be never, or it's going to be another war, and another war, and another war. So if we want something to definitely happen, we have to do it right. And if they keep tying our hands and not letting us do it right, then people are going to be killed for no reason at all. I mean, it's just going to happen again. And that's why we want this to be done in the right way, with the right strategy. Of course, we're not politicians, and we're not army unit heads, but we have common sense, and we know what the human morals are, and we demand to save our children's lives before you save questionably civilian lives of the enemy. It's something which should be just something which America understands very well when they go out for war. I mean, please don't tell us to do things that it's like a double
standard.
A double standard. Don't tell us to do things that you yourself don't do when you're in war. And we've had a few civil liberty of this war. It's not the first time. And we'll just see what happens if you keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. It gets worse and worse and worse. And we demand for this war to be the last war in Gaza. And there's after the 7th of October, there's no way for anybody to tell us not to do that. There's no way. Nobody has the right to tell us not to protect ourselves in the best way that we can.
It's not even only protect, it's like literally existence. Like we have nowhere to go. The South cannot be in the South. The North cannot. There's always a different group. We're talking about Gaza, but there's always a different terrorist group.
Hezbollah, and we have in Yosh, we
exactly. This is a fight for our existence. I think the difference between us is that their whole lifestyle, their whole worldview is about fighting and destroying the Jewish state and the Jewish people. And for us, it's like our soldiers, our poor soldiers have left their families, have left their work. They do not want to be there. They do not want to carry weapons, and they are forced to do so. Because if they don't do that, their 5-year-old sisters will have to go there, or their kids, or their 70-year-old mothers. And that's the difference between us.
Yes, I just wanted to have more than 40 grandchildren who were alone for 3 months already. For 3 months, their fathers are not home. And there has to be a purpose for that. I mean, you don't just leave your family. It's just like, and just leave everything. You just stop your whole life because there's something which is very, very key.
It's existential.
Very existential that you have to deal with. And that's something what the USA has no right to tell us not to do things in the way that we feel that has to be done.
You know, I saw this morning that a letter was put out by the 60,000 residents of the North who are now internal refugees. They had to leave their homes, addressed to President Biden and to Secretary of State Tony Blinken, saying, look, you know, we have to deal with the Hezbollah threat on our border. So if it's a diplomatic way of dealing with it, fine. But if it's a military way, then we demand that you support Israel here, because, you know, we're looking at the situation and the demand, it's never ending. And when you look at what's happening in Gaza and you see the complete mobilization of the people of Gaza on behalf of Hamas, willingly or unwillingly, it really doesn't matter. Nobody's going to stand up to them. And most of the people there are happy to be human shields. You know, I saw this incredible story of one of the hostages. She was held in Gaza with her mother, and she was giving an interview at Uvda. I actually did a short on it that should be going up later this week. She says, you know, they moved us into a school, and this woman came up to us. She was really nice. She said, here, take a mattress. Here, you know, I'll worry about a place for you. She gave us water. We thought, well, maybe there aren't all bad people here. Maybe there are good people here after all. But then she said 5 minutes later, they started using the school. They were shooting missiles into Israel from the school, and they realized that they were civilian shields. And then she said to her mother, forget it, no, they're all the same. And the thing was that, you know, it was a school. Right? I mean, they're deliberately brought to the school. The woman said to her, you'll be safe here. This is a school. They don't shoot at the school. And all the people sitting in the school getting refuge in the school, the Gazans, were screaming Allahu Akbar every time they shot off a missile at Israel. So they're all thrilled that they're being used as human shields, that they're being shot. This is a war crime on two different levels, right? Both human shields and shooting from a school. And they're all excited and exhilarated about it. They're holding hostages. It's a third war crime. It's a crime against humanity. And they're all cool with that. That's the society.
Right.
And so here we are being demanded by the Americans that we have to worry about these people before we worry about our soldiers. So, you know, can you tell me a little bit about your sons that are in?
I have sons who are in the north. I have sons who are in the south. I have sons who are in the Yudav Shemon middle. And they come home for days, 2 days. I would say some of them come home, and you know what they do? I have an unmarried son who's all King. What he did was to visit two friends who don't have legs anymore. And he went to a funeral, and he went to a shipa call. That's what he did. That's what he did on his chofish. In other words, this is what they're going through. I'm not talking about the trauma they're going to go through and what's the post-trauma. We're still on the trauma. We can't deal with post-trauma because we're still in the middle of the trauma. But they're going through very, very, very difficult sites, and we have to make it as meduyak as we can. As precise as we can.
What about you? I mean, you looking at what's going on. I mean, it's just
I can't even imagine what the mothers are going through. But I think that mothers, friends, siblings, we all feel that these are our families. Israel is small. And soldiers, many have reported that every single home that they've been to has something that has to do with, they're not just Hamas supporters until today, literally have, you know, like all their weapons and all their whatever, all their stuff is within these homes. And I can also tell you that there's a screenshot of my brother who before he went into the Gaza Strip, we were really worried, and I told him, I really hope that they shoot from the air. It's enough, and I'm really pro-peace at almost any price, really, even if it's about land or anything. I think most Israelis are willing to do whatever they can, but it's not about politics, it's not about land. And he wrote, I have to go in because I want to make sure that we don't hurt innocent civilians. That's what he wrote in our group WhatsApp. And unfortunately, 9 years later, these children or whatever, these innocent civilians on the Gaza Strip. They didn't only come and shoot our pro-peace kibbutznikim and pro-peace party people. They literally brutally attacked and murdered and, raped and did what they did. So these are the innocent civilians. Unfortunately, we cannot look at them no longer as innocent civilians. And I think that when American progressives want to help, it's amazing, and I'm pro-helping the innocent Palestinians, but this is not the way. They need to come and they need to see for themselves that no humanitarian aid is reached, that all the fuel that is being carried out that we are, forced to give them is used for the tunnels, and this is a cycle that never ends. And so if you want to help, there are ways to help, but definitely not pressuring Israel to not do certain things, to lose the war, to risk our innocent children that are soldiers, but they're reservists. They're not there because they want to be there.
And even if they're conscripted to protect their families.
Exactly, to fight the enemy.
Boys,
To fight the enemy.
I mean, there are boys. That's the thing. And our girls, in fact. Now, there are girls in Gaza, too. I mean, you look at it and it's just extraordinary. So, I have to tell you something. I'll tell you guys, too, which is that I was talking to an official. I was talking to a source, and he said something really interesting, that the Gazans and that party, together with the United States and perhaps the chief of staff, they were of the opinion that we shouldn't go back after the hostage swap, that they wanted the war to somehow or another piddle out. And the reason why that didn't happen and that we reinstated the ground operation and everything was because of the outcry of the parents, of the mothers, of the bereaved families, demanding victory, that it's because Israeli society is united in a way that we haven't been, in decades, and understand, no matter where you stand on the political spectrum, that this is not about anything other than the survival of the Jewish people and the Jewish state at this point, and that it is a societal war, that the thousands of Gazans who came in, strolled in, paraded into the kibbutzim and participated in the slaughter and the rape and the looting and everything else, that it's because Hamas is an organic outgrowth of the society, of Palestinian society, and they're not separate from it. They're not unique, and that's why this whole humanitarian aid thing is really an act of hostility against Israeli society.
Right.
And so I think that what you guys are doing is so important and not surprising, right? I mean, nobody came to this because we're gung ho and we want to go out and look at you. You have your whole clinic and you're leaving your patients in order to come to Jerusalem and do this podcast with me and the protests, and you have your own family business that you're putting aside to do this, because we all understand that this is our country at stake.
And it's now or never. It's now or never.
Right.
The Biden administration of the world needs to understand that this is, we're in the front because we're the Jews, but it's not only against the Jews, it's against humanity, it's against the world. And if they don't understand that if we continue to give them the fuel and if they don't give us permission to bomb terrorists,
to support us,
to bomb these terrorists, these are terrorists, the Gazan population have become, that's their education, that's their whole way of life, that's their whole thinking strategy. There's absolutely nothing else we can do,
right.
Unfortunately.
There's actually no choice.
Well, I think that probably wraps it up, although, I mean, I think that we could just go into the precision with which they take every single thing that gets into Gaza and use it first for the war against the Jews and second for the war against the Jews.
And third.
Yeah, and when they get to 15 or 16, they might give some food. But it's not about anything but fighting the Jews, because Palestinian society is a society organized around one principle only, which is the annihilation of Israel.
And also, we're letting them exist. I mean, if they won't get this fuel and they won't get water and they won't get the electricity, that maybe we have a chance of that they will surrender. But this way, they just completely.
No, and also they cut us down ground. Instead of coming up above ground and shooting our soldiers by surprise who are under ambush from a civilian installation, then they'll come out of the tunnels because they don't have any air, and then we can have a fair fight with them. I'm not going to fight them down there. We don't know what's down there. Right. It's a terrible situation, but our soldiers can't be sitting ducks in a shooting gallery of Gaza. Exactly. All right. Well, I appreciate it, and guys, keep your eyes on this space. There'll be more coming up from the Caroline Glick Show. Thanks very much for watching.